hardware wallets. You all know what a hardware wallet is. If not, it's very good because we're going to have some beginners questions. But yeah, this is like these amazing tools that when you're starting Bitcoin, you download a software wallet and then you get to see one of those little machines and you fall in love and you just want it, and you feel that you are gonna have like a safe, like a Swiss safe, where you're gonna throw there your Bitcoins and they are gonna be extremely safe. This is what you think at the beginning. Later on, bit by bit, you start to learn how they really work. And my first question for the beginners that are here with us today, I wanted to ask you, when to hardware wallets? So when do you think it's time to consider using a hardware wallet?
I mean, it should not be your first thing. Your first thing is, you have $100 worth of Bitcoin, get a phone wallet, learn about Bitcoin, learn how to use a seed, load, unload. Like, it's kind of like when you buy a bicycle, right? You buy a lock that is like priced appropriately to the cost of your bicycle, right? You don't buy $100,000 lock for a $10 bicycle. So you try to just have something that is like relating to the amount of money you have and you want to defend. So, maybe when you have a few $1,000s worth of Bitcoin, that's maybe a good time to invest in something.
I would also add, maybe the first step is when to on-chain, because if you have like $50, just keep them on some Lightning wallet and that's it. Then at some point you maybe move some of these funds on-chain, and when this stack starts kind of growing, then you think about getting another wallet. If you struggle to afford another wallet, it's probably too early for you, I would say. So there's definitely, it's not for the absolute beginner, or at least not for people that don't have a lot of money to begin with.
Yeah, I can only second that. So like they said, it's basically two aspects. So one is how much Bitcoin you have. For less than $1,000, I believe Lightning is fine and mobile wallets are fine. So usually like the rule of thumb is $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, and on-chain the same. The rule of thumb there is for me 1 million sats, which is like $600 now. So from both perspectives, it makes sense to go like above $1,000 worth of Bitcoin.
It's funny. I have this rule of thumb that like you should defend your Bitcoin as if it was 10 times the amount of dollars, but you can never sort of make up your mind. It's like, do you defend, $1,000 if it was $10,000? So now you have a hardware wallet or not? It's tricky because it costs money.
Yeah, I guess just to play devil's advocate, I agree with what was said. It depends on how much the ratio, how much you're trying to save versus the cost of a hardware wallet. That makes sense. But just play devil's advocate. When we approach it, we kind of have the idea that if you could start out from ground zero with the best way to hold and keep your Bitcoin secure, why not go for it? Of course, you're coming in with a certain amount. And so like for us, for example, and I guess for some other hardware wallets, they have a buy Bitcoin option in it. And so it is possible to start from ground zero with a hardware wallet, open it up, and you can get your first Bitcoin through that. And there's some non-custodial ways to do it also. And I'd add to that, again, mostly playing devil's advocate. But I also say we did some customer surveys where, interestingly, now it changes over time where a lot of people actually don't start out on an exchange. And more people are kind of doing some homework themselves beforehand. And so I think for these people also, just the feeling of being safe from day one can help.
So this is, I like that we have some other opinion, and I want to continue with you because I get asked a lot from beginners when they have a doubt or when Ledger screws up and then they want to
can always count on
get out from there. Yeah, because last year it was a continuous thing, no? And then they panic, and then you realize that they didn't understood what a hardware wallet is and what it does. So the same that we learn how to drive before we do some theory before we drive, do you think there is like a minimum knowledge people should get before jumping into a hardware wallet? Or as you were saying, it's okay to learn by doing?
Again, from how we approach it, everyone says there's a dichotomy between security and simplicity. I think that's a false dichotomy. I think the job of hardware wallet manufacturers is to really remove that gap. And so I think our job should be that, and I'm not saying we're there yet, but our job should be to on that path that people don't have to understand all the technical details to get the security from it. That said, if you look at what people do in practice, yeah, there's a lot of mistakes happening because they just don't have a fundamental understanding of what makes Bitcoin very different than fiat currency. So, for example, you mentioned it before, not understanding that your coins aren't actually inside of the hardware wallet. They're stored on the blockchain in public, and you just have the keys in the hardware wallet. And so understanding, if someone gets my seed, I lose it or something, you should really be concerned about that, because then whoever gets it can take your coins, and you shouldn't expect to call the hardware company and ask them to, reset your password.
A big way in which people lose money with hardware wallets is because you have like companies like Ledger, right? They'll leak information of customers accidentally. It happens. But then the customers were not like the average person did not fully comprehend that the seed is very important. So then somebody goes into their DMs pretending that they're the hardware wallet. Please give me your seed so I can help you. And then money gone, right? And this is one of the reasons why we try to not make it like over easy, because if you make it over easy, the person skips the understanding step, right? And if they skip the understanding step, when somebody asks them for their seed, they're going to give the seed, right? So I think it's very important for people to understand what they're doing, because this is their life savings, right? So like they need to know, they need to understand they're taking a lot of responsibility. And when you oversimplify things, you can really screw things up.
I kind of agree on that, but on the other hand, I think it's bad for users to say like you have to pass this kind of test before you can actually use one. So I'm more of a believer of kind of learn by doing. I would suggest people maybe play with testnet coins, start with something simple to use that doesn't have a steep learning curve. But maybe if you're not feeling confident to do it on mainnet, maybe try it on some other chain or something like that. Because I think for me, for a technical person, I love, to be able to do everything. But I think people tend to be scared when you make something kind of overcomplicated on purpose. So,
I mean, we do have a very Darwinian way of people having a test, right? Some people get the coins and some people end up not having the coins anymore. Right.
Yeah,
and we really want to avoid that.
Yeah, that's a pretty bad way to test them. So ideally, you should, I guess, make something simple and say, just be confident with this, play with it, maybe on other chains, and then move to the real thing.
Yeah. So I think we can all agree, like the minimum level of understanding is the recovery seed. The user just needs to know that that's the most important thing, not the device itself, but the actual recovery seed, and the sensitive nature of that. We as hardware wallet manufacturers need to remind users, like, do you have that backed up? Do you have that in a physical format, not as a digital copy? Don't send it to anyone. So yeah, that's the very basic level of understanding that self-sovereign users need to have, because otherwise they are going to lose the coins given sufficient time.
I think that was a nice covering for people who is starting now, and I would add what Alekos said, like use testnet. All hardware wallets have it. Like use it, try, test, play, lose testnet coins, and then when you're sure what you're doing, just go mainnet. Going more like into less beginner focused. Last year, there has been a lot of talk on many different things. Miniscript, also the MPC gang, so music and more technical stuff. Bitcoin secure multisig format to share and to do proper multisig. I would like to know each of you, and really interested in Portal, because it's a new one that is coming. What's on your plate now? What are you going to be working like the next month?
Yeah, so the next month is production. So kind of a boring answer, but right now we're focused on, basically the product is done. We're speaking with manufacturers and getting it made. In terms of features, software, So Portal, for example, is based on BDK. So we kind of inherit all of that nice, single sig, multi-sig, arbitrary descriptors support and stuff, but it's not unlocked yet in the firmware. So right now the firmware is single sig only for testing. So by the time we start shipping the devices, we will very likely have released multi-sig as well. And then we have plans for descriptors, miniscript,
Even
because it's already there. Like BDK supports it. So it's not really that hard. What we need to implement is more like the UX on top of it. So like what do you show on screen, what do you need to save, persist, and stuff like that. So we need to figure that out. So that's going to take longer, but definitely we want to get there too at some point. Music and stuff, we'll see. When it's ready in BDK, it's going to be ready in Portal as well. So we'll see BDK first, what they do.
We've had miniscript and more than Spendall. We support a bunch of the Schnorr spec and Taproot spec on the Edge firmware. It is a ginormous diff, and there is exactly zero market demand for that right now. The boys from Liana are here somewhere, Wizardine, and they are some of the few of the market, but it's not like with a lot of user market, right? We're trying to make it as safe as possible because it's kind of your life savings are on the device. So we need to see a lot more market demand to merge the Edge on master and make it stable release. Rob from Anchor Watch is also working on that. They're been giving us a lot of feedback, and we're playing and trying to break the miniscript implementation. There is other Taproot interesting things that we want to do, right? I mean, there's Musig, but there's no spec yet. What else? But again, like 99% of the market, the Bitcoin only market, I don't know what the shitcoins want, but they really want like practical features. It seems like that's really sort of where it really hits the point, is like, trick pins and timeout timers and two-factor authentication and, like day-to-day stuff. I find that most of the Taproot design space, it's going to be incredible, especially on the Schnorr side too. When the clients design the experience, this is one of those times it's very different. Because, with traditional multi-sig or single sig, right, the design space is very narrow and is very defined by the hardware wallets. Because at the end of the day, you just, you have a wallet, you want to send something, right? Now with the Schnorr and Musig and all this stuff, like the clients need to design more interesting things than just like, here's your threshold of, 50 out of 100 signatures or whatever. Nobody wants that. Right, what they want is like, here's this beautiful UX that works in a very interesting way, where you have like uncle and father and this and that. They have the correct thresholds, and then that builds a very nice sort of miniscript template, right? That then we as hardware wallets, we can then store it, sign it, do whatever they require of us. I really want hardware wallets to become dumber, not smarter. We want to retain a lot of state. Right, so we can make sure that grifting attacks. Remember when you guys found that one? That stuff is stored, right? So we have a copy of all that to help the user not get robbed. But on the other hand, it's like, I want to just sign transactions as a hardware wallet. I want to be as restricting and as a narrow focus as possible, so that we don't lose keys and let the clients become a more complex, interesting thing.
Which is, I just wanted to add. Which is why many other wallets nowadays are deciding to become Bitcoin only, because you want to like minimize.
You can't do shitcoins with all the Bitcoin stack, right? It becomes very hard to maintain and separate. And Bitcoin is becoming more complex too, which wasn't before.
Bitcoin already is pretty complex, so if you add extra stuff on top, it gets harder and harder to maintain.
Although you could sign cashews with just SecP.
That's cool.
But that's a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah, right. So for the time being, we feel like the Trezor toolbox is like sufficient, large enough. So the last like major things in terms of Bitcoin were the Taproot account and the CoinJoin account. And so for the next couple of months, the UX improvement of the tools that we already have is like the main thing. So the passphrase UX and Shamir Backup UX, because that has been there for years. Not a lot of people know about like the benefits of passphrase and Shamir. They are sort of aware it's there. They are sometimes concerned about making the leap because it derives a new set of wallets, so then they need to move the funds over. So we want to improve the UX of that and make it much easier for people to level up, basically, because I think it's a good idea to start simple with a hardware wallet, with a single seed without no passphrase, but then people should progress as their Bitcoin net worth increases, passphrase to Shamir Backup, and we just need to make it easier and just to work with the tools that we already have and not to expand that and confuse users even more.
Yeah, good answer so far. For us, yeah, we've implemented some things already. You mentioned Miniscript. We did implement that. Liana poked us enough until it came out. We do see like big advantages there. We're probably not going to put it into our own app, but yeah, let them do something cool with it.
Do you know BitKey is doing interesting stuff with some, it's not quite threshold, I think, but they're doing some key sort of management and, you know, keys go here, go there, and there's no screen. You know, it's a different, completely different sort of security model, and it's for, you know, noobs sort of out there. Yeah, it's just nice to see different stuff being tried than, you know, what we've been doing for, you know, a decade.
Yeah. So some things we're working on right now. We just yesterday launched a Lightning alpha, closed alpha. We got a lot of feedback on that. Yeah, it's a bit counter to these ideas of keeping hardware wallets simple and things like that. But we see a lot of customer demand there. And also just this month, we launched in partnership with a company founded by some long-term Bitcoiners, an insurance product called Bitinsurance. Right now, it's only in Germany, but it's going to expand to the EU, where, as far as I'm aware, it's the first insurance that protects against the $5 wrench attack. And so it's non-custodial.
Kind of a shared custody?
No shared custody.
Okay.
You keep it all yourself on a Bitbox. And right now, it's up. The maximum, I think, is $100,000 limit. For a normal insurance fee. And then if someone breaks into your house and cracks you over the head with a $5 wrench, steals your coins, they will pay it back.
That's I guess that's similar to Anchor Watch is doing something like that, but they do it's co-custody, but they really don't have enough keys, right? They only have one. They do that because the policy requires them to understand the script and understand the coins.
Yeah. So for this one, you keep all of your keys. But you have to share, of course, information about your wallet to your ex-pub. Yeah. So you give up some privacy.
Listening to Josef, I thought about a question that I was not planned, and I don't know how it will go, but I think it can be a good conversation here. And I'm sure that you will, or I hope that you will not agree, because when people start, they always ask, okay, but what should I use? Passphrase? Single sig and that's it, like only the seed, or I should there is a lot of push for multi-sig lately. We have other things now. We have Shamir, CTXOR. What do you think is the just fine solution? Like, you're good with that, good enough with that?
So, you know, again, like, everybody's different, right? And people have different security concerns, different security problems, right? If you live in Brazil, you're exposed in some ways, right? If you live in Switzerland, it's a different security issue, right? I think everybody benefits from having a hardware wallet not connected to a computer, right? That to me is like a big deal. You know, we can argue about the USB cable or non-USB cable all night, but aside from that, any hardware wallet is better than no hardware wallet. I think we all agree on this. And it's been proven. I mean, you know, if you've been in Bitcoin for long enough, everybody used to get robbed. And then hardware wallets appeared, and then like people progressively became less robbed. So that's a nice improvement, right? Now, you know, single sig is amazing, right? I mean, multi-sig as we have it is crap. It is very secure, but you can secure yourself out of it too. You know, encryption is only fun when you have the password, right? So, having single sig is a huge improvement. On a hardware wallet is a huge improvement. Adding the passphrase is really nice. I mean, it's like a superpower. On top of that, encryption is sprinkling some magic over it, and you get 1,000 times more security. But that does now make you have 2 backups, right? But I think it's more important for people to think about where they put their metal plate that they should be using so it doesn't burn on paper, than sort of getting too complicated about. If you have to ask for advice, you shouldn't be using multisig.
Yeah, I would say most people probably don't need more than a single sig. If you can add a passphrase, that's better. I would also argue maybe there's a difference between which device you're using. So maybe on some devices you have secure elements. It's harder to extract the seed, so maybe you don't really need a passphrase. On other devices, maybe you need a stronger passphrase, stronger PIN. So there's also maybe I don't know. It's kind of hard to evaluate the whole picture of somebody. It's like case by case. I don't think there's one solution for everybody. But I would say, yeah, try not to overcomplicate things, because I've seen most people lose money because of overcomplication and then accidentally losing something that they didn't think was important. So definitely, yeah, don't overcomplicate things. That's my biggest advice.
Yeah, I second all of that. When people not so experienced, not so technical come into the space, we definitely recommend single sig. And even, be careful with the passphrase, because in our experience, there's been hacks and bugs reported in hardware wallets, but I think, as far as I'm aware, there's really not anybody who actually lost funds through those hacks.
There are, but it's kind of all over the place. Yeah. It's also very hard to prove, hard to disprove. Yeah. It's a very complicated space, and also there's a lot of people out there who will lose funds in some attacks, and it's not public. Yeah,
Okay, I'll just say, relatively speaking, a vast amount of people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because of their own human error.
It's like, don't put the keys on the computer.
Don't put your keys on your computer. You forget your passphrase. With multi-sig, you over-secure yourself out of it.
You remember Armory? I know a lot of people who got their coins trapped in Armory and they'll never get them out.
Yeah, so to answer the question, what is just enough? I believe self-custody in any form is just enough. Getting out of FTX the night before it collapsed was that was just enough. Just get out, even if it's into green. That's a solid mobile wallet. So that's just enough if something seems to be going wrong, and the exchanges, you never know. So self-custody is just enough. And then single sig, single seed, what was already said, that's just enough for the hardware wallets. Be comfortable with that. It's better to begin with single sig, single seed, than to jump into Shamir with passphrase on top of that, and multiple stuff to keep track of, and you haven't even tried to recover it from that because you heard somewhere that this is the only setup that works. So that's you need to keep it simple, and you need to be comfortable with what you are doing. Double check everything, do the dry run recovery, and that's not just enough. That's better than just enough. That's how we should do it.
There is one aspect that I noticed sort of as of late. There is a bit of a trend for people to keep unencrypted passphrases around the house. It's a terrible idea. But Twitter giving bad advice as usual. Don't get your security advice from Twitter. What's really cool and really scary about Bitcoin private keys is that once it's exposed, you may not be robbed immediately, right? People can wait years before they take it from you. So you really cannot expose those keys. Chain of custody is very important when it comes to this, right? And your house is full of cameras. Your computer has a camera, your phone has 50 cameras. Your TV sometimes has cameras, and you're manipulating the seed around the house. It's a really terrible idea. So make sure your seeds are either encrypted in the house or they're outside buried somewhere.
We're running out of time, but I would like to close with one question. We're talking here about self-custody. Basically, you win money because people want to self-custody, so they need your products. But self-custody in the future, I started to see like something might change. What I mean, I see two forces. One is regulatory. It seems to be pressure to incentivize users to use custodial services just by making it very hard to withdraw from exchanges, to make you feel that you're doing something wrong by doing that, or by implementing travel rule. Now they are starting in UK, soon in Europe. So yeah, there is a regulatory pressure, and also we saw a mempool pressure. So it's the mempool, or even the price. I think that the price is going to be doing the same effect as the mempool by forcing you to have bigger UTXOs to make sense to move them. And then more and more people will be left out of on-chain Bitcoin. So how do you see, as briefly as you can, the future for self-custody, let's say in 10 years' time?
I've talked a lot about this. And reality is most people are going to get priced out of base layer, right? The hardware market is going to sort of increase and then it's going to decrease, right? Because you're going to have, we're still all going to grow because it's so early, but, it's going to plateau and then sort of like, become a niche, right? That's why security is the most important thing, because on-chain transactions are essentially like equivalent to wire transfer economical value, right? It's going to become so expensive to be on-chain that each transaction is going to have to be worth a few $1,000s, right? And then all the rest of that is going to live on your phone. But realistically speaking, out of 8 billion people in the world, how many people are going to have $5,000 to transfer, right? It's like very small amount of people. So we're not gonna, a lot of these projects that are trying to aim at people who don't have a lot of money, they're not going to have a reason to exist anymore. And who knows, maybe we get confidence and then we don't even have to need like half the hardware wallets anymore either. We just move everything to Upvault.
Yeah. I'll keep it short. So the first part, like it's going to be probably impossible to withdraw the coins from the KYC exchanges. I believe like that's going to happen at least in some jurisdictions. So like one of the reasons or one of the effects of that is Satoshi Labs created this project called Vexel. It's a non-KYC peer-to-peer way to find counterparties. There's already some offers for Madeira. So you can talk to Grafton from our team. It's a very neat tool. It's sort of like BTC Pay Server, open source, like a public good for people to use all around the world. I believe that's how you should get your Bitcoin, just from other Bitcoiners, from other people. And the second part, just one thing. There's a very good episode on Stefan Livera podcast with Eric Yates on Bitcoin banking, and he goes into all like what's going on, what are the approaches like sidechains and Fedimint. So I believe like that's the best resource right now to listen to.
Yeah, but then they will not need the hardware wallets in that.
Yeah,
case.
absolutely.
No, you can go.
I probably don't have anything too insightful to say here. I think one thing though, like with the more regulation, again, just to play devil's advocate, that might be also kind of an educational factor for the public to see, okay, why are they doing this? Why is that? And maybe it makes them, research a little bit more and see what the real ideal is. And as far as the mempool, sure, there's going to need to be different layers, solutions. I don't know if what exists today is going to be what exists in 10 years, that what people use. But I do hope that, this idea of decentralized self-custody, taking power away from the government rather than just letting us have it more. I hope that drives innovation to get to a different project, some sidechain or a layer 3 or layer 10, who knows, where you still have control yourself. And if you have control yourself, you need to protect that control. And in that case, I think some kind of external hardware device would be the way to access that.
Even for layer 3 or layer 4 or
I think I mostly agree with them. I'm not sure about the timeline though, because the way I see Bitcoin right now, and probably for the next maybe 10 years, is mostly as a saving technology. So it's not like you don't need to transact a lot, you don't need to move around Bitcoin a lot. So obviously when we get to that phase of hyper Bitcoinization where you make transactions every day, then many of these coins are probably going to move to hot storage, to like more and to better transaction medium like Lightning. But that's not really happening yet. It's kind of a slow process. So I think definitely we will need hardware wallets for many years from now. And then I agree with you. It's probably going to plateau at some point, but I think it's maybe not 10 years, maybe more than that.
On the regulatory standpoint, I mean, realistically speaking, Europe is kind of getting weird. But outside of Europe, I mean, like, it's not going to happen. I mean, like, people do have freedom. It's I live in Canada part of the time. But even in Canada, they can't. I mean, if you look at 60102, right, when the U.S. decided to confiscate the gold, do you know how many people went to jail? One guy.
Yeah.
One. And these things are more like kind of like a projection of power from governments. They can't achieve that. I mean, look at the cash economy. It's huge. How's the war on drugs going? They're not winning. It's very optimistic, right? Like, we have technologies that they really can't effectively like capture. They can make life miserable, but only to a certain extent.
We're completely out of time, and I would love to have even questions because I think it was very interesting and there is a lot still to talk. So yeah, thank you very much. It was a very interesting conversation.
Thank you.